All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
Awesome. So today we're going deeper into the Dharma Collection, picking up with Dharmas 41 through 60.
Building on what we talked about last time.
Exactly. And get this, Dharma 41 hits us with 20, count 'em, 20 types of emptiness. The emptiness of the self-existence, of existence. I mean, whoa.
It's a lot to unpack. People often ask, what does emptiness even mean in Buddhism?
It's
It's not that things don't exist, but more like they don't have this fixed, independent existence.
okay, I think I get that. Kind of like a wave can't exist without the ocean.
Exactly. Everything's connected, dependent.
So why is this emptiness thing such a big deal?
Well, think about how often we cling to things like they're permanent. Our house, our job, even our sense of self.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
And that clinging, that's where suffering comes in. Understanding emptiness helps us loosen that grip, Find some freedom.
Makes sense. And this ties right into Dharma 42, which is all about conditional origination. It's like a 12-part cycle of how suffering happens.
It starts with ignorance, then moves to volitions, intentions, and then consciousness. And from there, it just keeps going, all the way to aging and death, then back to ignorance.
A never-ending cycle. But it's not like we're doomed to suffer, right?
No, not at all. The point is, when we get this cycle, we see where we can actually break free. Our actions, our mental states, those are the things creating the suffering, and we can choose differently.
That's empowering. It's about taking responsibility, like you were saying. And then Dharma 43 feels like it's giving us the tools to actually do that. It's got these 37 steps towards awakening. Seems like a lot, but it's actually pretty practical when you break it down.
It is. Think of it like a training manual for spiritual growth. You've got these different groups, like the 4 ways of attending to mindfulness or the 4 right strivings. Each one's got specific practices or qualities to develop.
So it's not just sitting on a mountaintop meditating 24/7.
Definitely not. There are real steps we can take. Take the 4 right strivings, for example. They're all about protecting the good we already have, then building even more good while letting go of the bad stuff and stopping new bad stuff from popping up.
So like, if you're dealing with negative self-talk, you could use these strivings to, I don't know, be kinder to yourself, challenge those negative thoughts, and work on having a more positive inner dialogue.
Exactly. That's the idea.
That's such a helpful example. Okay, so we've got this mind-bending emptiness, the cycle of suffering and how to break it, and now even a toolkit for growth. But we've still got more to cover.
Yeah.
What about these dharmas, like 44 through 60? What's in store there?
Oh, tons of cool stuff. Dharma 44 gets into the 4 ways of attending to mindfulness. Dharma 45 dives deeper into those 4 right strivings. And then Dharma 46 brings up the 4 bases of spiritual power.
Wait, hold on. Dharma 55 mentions 4 dharma sentences. What's so special about these sentences?
They're like little nuggets of wisdom, super condensed but super powerful.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are they?
First one. All conditions are impermanent. Reminds us that nothing stays the same forever.
That's true. What's the second one?
Second one. All conditions are suffering. Not saying life is all doom and gloom, but because things are always changing, if we cling too tightly, we're going to suffer.
So back to that attachment thing again. What about number 3?
Third one. All things are without self. This one challenges how we usually think about the self. Like there's no fixed, unchanging me at the core.
That one's a bit of a head scratcher,
Yeah.
but interesting. And the last one.
The 4th sentence. Nirvana is peaceful. This points us to the ultimate goal, liberation from suffering. It's about finding lasting peace and happiness.
Wow, so much packed into just 4 sentences. That's wild. Okay, let's get back to those other dharmas.
Sounds good. So Dharma 46 outlines those 4 bases of spiritual power. These are qualities we build through practice, like the power of concentration fueled by desire, the power of thought, the power of energy, and the power of investigation.
Power of investigation. Sounds kind of like a detective or something.
Sort of. It's about developing a really sharp mind that can cut through the illusions and see reality clearly.
So wisdom and insight. Got it. What's next?
Dharma 47 brings up the 5 faculties: faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. These work together like a team to help us grow spiritually.
Teamwork makes the dream work. What about Dharma 48?
That one expands on the faculties and gives us the 5 strengths. It's like taking those faculties to the next level.
Leveling up. I like that. Okay, what else?
Dharma 49 outlines the 7 factors of awakening: mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity.
Sounds pretty blissful.
It is. And then Dharma 50, it brings us back to the noble Eightfold Path, which we've talked about before. It's like the ultimate guide to living a life that leads to liberation.
Okay, so we've got emptiness, conditional origination, those 37 factors of awakening, The four bases of power, the five faculties, five strengths, seven factors of awakening, and the Eightfold Path.
We've covered a lot, but there's still more. What about 51 through 60? What do those dharmas have for us? Well, Dharma 51 describes the Four Analytical Knowledges, which are all about using critical thinking to really understand the teachings. Then there's Dharma 52, which talks about the four retentions, focusing on memory and how we hold on to information.
So it's not just about blindly believing, but actually understanding. Got it. What about 53?
That one's about the four reliances. These are like guidelines to figure out what's true and avoid just following blindly.
Sounds important, especially these days with so much information flying around.
Totally. Then Dharma 54 outlines the six recollections. These are things to contemplate, like the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, generosity, virtue, and the gods.
Beautiful. And we already talked about those four Dharma sentences in Dharma 55. What about 56?
That one gets into the 10 unwholesome things, actions and mental states that lead to suffering and hold us back.
So things to avoid if we want to live a good life. Makes sense. What's next?
Dharma 57 describes the six destinations. These are different realms of existence that beings can be reborn into based on their karma. Then Dharma 58 talks about the six elements: earth, water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness, basically. What makes up reality itself.
Wow. It's like we're going from the micro to the macro here.
Right. And then there's Dharmas 59 and 60.
Hit me with it.
Dharma 59 describes the 8 liberations, which are these advanced meditative states that can lead to total freedom from suffering. And finally, Dharma 60 talks about the 5 things that have immediate consequences, actions that are so serious they have instant karmic effect.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to unpack. It's amazing how these dharmas cover so much, from the really basic stuff to the super deep, complex stuff.
It's pretty incredible, and we've only scratched the surface.
You're telling me? Okay, let's take a breather and let all this sink in for a minute. We'll be right back with more on Dharmas 41 through 60.
All right, we're back. Ready to keep exploring these dharmas.
Oh, yeah. We were just talking about all these different realms and elements, and it's a lot to take in, but super fascinating.
It is. And remember Dharma 59, those 8 liberations we touched on.
Yeah, those definitely caught my attention. Like complete freedom from suffering. Sign me up.
Right. So these are basically deeper and deeper meditative states. Each one builds on the last, and they lead us toward that ultimate freedom.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about these liberations.
All right, so the first one involves seeing forms as empty, even though you still have a physical body.
So kind of like seeing through the illusion that things are solid and separate.
Exactly. The second one goes even further. It's about seeing forms outside yourself as empty. You're not identifying with your body as me anymore.
Whoa, that's a big shift. What's the third one?
The third liberation is about seeing even the most beautiful, desirable forms as empty. It's about letting go of attachment to what we find attractive.
Like recognizing that beauty is fleeting, not something to cling to.
Exactly. And the fourth liberation, this one's about perceiving the sphere of endless space as empty. Your mind expands beyond physical limitations.
It's like our awareness isn't limited to our body or a specific place anymore.
Right. And the fifth liberation takes it even further. It's perceiving endless consciousness as empty. You go beyond the perception of space and enter this realm of pure consciousness.
Okay, this is getting pretty mind-blowing, but I gotta ask, what about the sixth liberation?
That one's about perceiving the sphere of nothingness as empty. It's where even the subtlest thoughts and perceptions kind of fade away.
So like total silence in the mind.
You got it. And then the seventh, this one's tricky. It's perceiving the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception as empty.
Can you explain that one again? It's kind of going over my head.
It's tough to grasp, for sure. Imagine pure awareness, but it's not defined by what it perceives or doesn't perceive. It's beyond those categories.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. It's like we transcend how we usually experience things.
Exactly. And finally, we reach the eighth liberation. This one's about perceiving the cessation of perception and feeling as empty. It's the ultimate goal in Buddhism. Complete liberation, pure bliss, no more mental formations.
Wow. That sounds incredible. But, let's come back down to earth for a sec. Remember how we were talking about Dharma 43 being like a toolkit?
Oh, yeah, with those 4 right strivings.
Yes, I love that. It made these teachings feel so practical.
Absolutely. So remember, it's about protecting the good, cultivating more good, letting go of the bad, and preventing new bad stuff.
Right, and you gave that great example about negative self-talk. Any other examples of how we could use those strivings?
Sure. Let's say you're super stressed at work. You could start by trying to protect any piece you already have, like taking a few mindful breaths.
So finding those little moments of calm amidst the chaos.
Yep. Then you could try cultivating more peace, maybe by doing something you enjoy after work.
Recharging those batteries. What about abandoning the negative stuff?
Well, in this case, you could try to figure out what's causing you stress and see if you can change it. Maybe you need to communicate better with your coworkers or set some boundaries.
So taking action instead of just letting the stress build up.
Right. And then preventing future stress might involve having some healthy coping mechanisms in place, like exercise or meditation.
Those four strivings are so useful. They can apply to so many situations.
They really can. Okay, before we move on, what about those 4 retentions from Dharma 52?
Oh yeah, the ones about memory. Refresh my memory.
No problem. So the first one, retention of oneself, is about remembering that we're responsible for our own experiences and memories. It's about self-awareness.
Like being mindful of our thoughts and actions.
Exactly. Then there's retention of a book, which is about learning from wise teachings, really absorbing that knowledge.
Not just reading, but understanding.
Yep. Then we have retention of the Dharma, which is about holding on to the Buddha's teachings, not just in our minds, but in our hearts too.
Making them part of who we are.
And then the last one, retention of a spell, is a little more out there. It's about the power of certain practices to transform the mind.
Like mantras or visualization.
Exactly. Okay, and what about Dharma 53, those 4 reliances?
Those seem super relevant today, with all the information overload we face.
I agree. So the first one is reliance on the meaning, not just the words. It's about understanding the essence of the teachings.
Going deeper than just the surface level.
Right. The second is reliance on knowledge, not just awareness. So it's not enough to just know something, you got to really understand it.
Yeah, knowledge without understanding isn't very useful.
Exactly. Then there's reliance on the plain sense, not the inferred sense. So it's about seeing things clearly without adding our own baggage to it.
Being objective, basically.
Yep. And finally, reliance on the Dharma itself, not on a person. So we trust the teachings themselves, not just because someone said so.
So thinking for ourselves. I like it.
Okay, let's squeeze in one more Dharma before we wrap up this part. What about Dharma 54 with the 6 recollections?
Oh yeah, those were interesting. They were about connecting with something bigger than ourselves, right?
Exactly. The first 3 are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the 3 jewels of Buddhism.
Right, the 3 jewels. What's the point of remembering them?
Well, remembering the Buddha is about contemplating those qualities of an awakened being: wisdom, compassion, equanimity.
Like reminding ourselves that awakening is possible for all of us.
Exactly. Remembering the Dharma means thinking about the teachings and how they can free us from suffering. And remembering the Sangha is about remembering the community of practitioners who support us on the path.
Like we're all in this together. What about the other 3 recollections?
Those are generosity, virtue, and the gods. Remembering generosity is about reflecting on the joy of giving. Remembering virtue is about being mindful of our ethical conduct, living in line with our values.
Walking the walk, basically.
Exactly. And finally, remembering the gods. It's not about worshiping deities, but more about contemplating those higher qualities they represent, like wisdom and compassion.
So like recognizing that there's more to reality than we usually see and aspiring to cultivate those qualities in ourselves.
You got it. It's about expanding our understanding of what's possible.
Wow, this has been amazing. We talked about those deep liberations, got practical with the 4 right strivings, and even contemplated those retentions and recollections. It's awesome how all these dharmas fit together to give us a bigger picture of the path.
It really is. But we're not done yet. Still got some more cool dharmas to explore in the next part, including those 10 unwholesome actions, the 6 destinations, and the 6 elements.
Can't wait. Listeners, take a minute to think about everything we've covered so far. How does it resonate with you? What stands out?
And we'll be back soon for the final part of our deep dive into Dharmas 41 through 60.
And we're back. One last time, diving into Dharmas 41 through 60. Phew, it's been a lot, but so insightful.
It has. We've barely scratched the surface, but hopefully it's given everyone a taste of what these teachings offer.
Totally. Okay, so last time, we were talking about those 6 recollections, connecting with something bigger. But now I'm kind of curious about those 10 unwholesome actions from Dharma 56. What makes them so unwholesome?
Basically, these are things that, well, they lead to suffering. For ourselves and others, they kind of block our progress on the path.
So like roadblocks on the journey to liberation.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not just physical actions. It's also about our mental states, What's going on inside?
Okay, can you give some examples of how this plays out in real life?
Sure. So the first three are pretty clear-cut: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Those are pretty universally seen as harmful.
Right, those make sense.
Yeah.
What about the next one, false speech?
That one covers lying, obviously, but
Yeah.
also any kind of communication that's meant to mislead or hurt someone. It's not just about flat-out lies, it's also about being dishonest or manipulative.
So being mindful of our intentions and how our words affect others.
Exactly. Then we've got these three: malicious speech, rough speech, and frivolous talk. They're all about the quality of our communication.
Okay, so malicious speech, that's like intentionally trying to hurt someone with your words.
Right. And rough speech is being harsh, abusive, disrespectful. Frivolous talk is just pointless chatter, no real substance.
It's interesting how these show how powerful speech can be, for good or
Yeah,
bad.
absolutely. Now, the last three are more internal: avarice, ill will, and wrong view. Avarice is basically greed, craving stuff. Ill will is anger, hatred, resentment. And wrong view is holding beliefs that go against the Buddhist teachings, like believing in a permanent self or denying karma and rebirth.
So it's not just what we do, but also what we think and believe.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that we all have the potential for both good and bad actions. It's not about judging ourselves or others, but just recognizing what's possible and choosing the positive whenever we can.
Love that. Okay, moving on to Dharma 57. We've got these 6 destinations. Sounds kind of mysterious. What are they?
Think of them as different realms of existence that beings are reborn into based on their karma. The first three are considered lower realms: hell, the animal world, and the ghost world. Lots of suffering there, and limited awareness.
So kind of like the consequences of those unwholesome actions we were just talking about.
You could say that. Hell realms are full of intense suffering, the animal world lacks freedom and intelligence, and the ghost world is all about never-ending hunger and thirst, never being satisfied.
Sounds rough.
Mm.
What about the higher realms?
Those are the demon world, human world, and God world. The demon world is all about jealousy and fighting for power. The human world, well, that's where we are now. It's considered a precious realm because we have the chance to grow spiritually here. And the God world is all about pleasure and long life.
So we humans are kind of in the middle, huh? Not the worst, not the best.
Yep. We have the freedom to choose our path, though. We can cultivate wisdom and compassion and work toward liberation.
I like that. Okay, what about Dharma 58? That one's about the 6 elements. Are these like the elements we find in nature?
They are earth, water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness. These are considered the fundamental building blocks of everything. Earth is solidity, water is fluidity, fire is heat, wind is motion, space is openness, and consciousness is awareness.
Whoa. So everything, like literally everything, is made up of these 6 elements.
That's the idea. It's a pretty awesome reminder that we're connected to everything around us.
I feel that. It's pretty humbling, really. Well, we've covered so much in this deep dive. Emptiness, conditional origination, those 37 steps toward awakening, 8 liberations.
Right. And those practical tools like the Four Right Strivings, it's a lot to take in.
It really is. But it's been such a rewarding journey. So to our listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into Dharmas 41 through 60. It's just a starting point, though. There's a whole world of wisdom out there to explore.
Exactly. Don't stop here. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep those conversations going.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, what Dharma really stuck with you? What are you going to take away from this deep dive? That's something to think about as we say goodbye for now. Thanks for joining us, and may your journey be filled with peace and understanding.